you do not manifest what you want, you just manifest who you are, right? What does this actually mean? Because how can you actually be the person you want to be if you're not sure how to get there, right? The most important thing is to really look at the difference between who you are now and who you want to become. So what are the physical and actual differences you have between these two? The second really important step, I think, is to really view what are the changes that you are able to do right now, because most of the changes that we need to apply in order to become someone else or shift our reality, shift our self-concept, change our identity, this really starts with changing small things, small habits. It's not like you are able to change everything overnight. It is not possible, but you are able to start changing small things and really focusing on specific things that you think are sort of these stepping stones to become that version of yourself. You've probably seen a lot of like self-concept manifestations and people talking about journaling and just setting up these vision boards, but how are they actually shifting your self-concept? How do they work? I believe the most important thing for you is to feel the way you would feel as the person you want to become, right? Some might say that you do not need to physically rebuild your 3D, so this reality, what you see. The reality that you see is called 3D. 5D is the reality where you're actually able to envision the other version of yourself, right? So 3D is this tangible reality you have around you. How to shift your self-concept without paying too much attention to this 3D. How is it possible? How can one do it if you are really affected by what you see and experience in your day-to-day life? Start to think about the physical things, like, for example, what I started to do. For me, it was a very, very slow and long process. So maybe I shouldn't be using myself as an example because that might discourage some of you, but I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs that I needed to work on. And depending on your journey, obviously you might have less or you might have to work with self-limiting beliefs also. This of course depends on how self-aware you are about who you are and how you perceive the world. So let's say for me, my starting point was I was working in a harbor and I really wanted to be a creative soul. So I wanted to do photography, I wanted to have exhibitions and really sort of live a bit more of this life of leisure instead of actually working from like every day in the harbor. At the time when I was working in the harbor, it was very difficult to see myself doing anything else because of my reality, my 3D. So when I was positioned in the harbor, I didn't see anything else that would have been possible for me because I had these self-limiting beliefs of if I work here, I cannot be anything else. How can I be a successful photographer or anyone who is creating anything if I'm still working in the harbor? So I set these limitations for myself, and as long as I had these limitations, I was not able to go past them. And it really took me, I would say, many years to actually understand what were the things that I needed to do in order to shift my focus outside of it. So understand that, okay, I might be in the harbor at the moment, but it doesn't mean that I cannot be somewhere else in the future. And by understanding this, I started to feel that I was already somewhere else. And I started to build this version of myself that would be the person who would be somewhere else. So this meant I started to create my home in a different way. I started to focus on different small aspects of my life, like being a more of an active person, like physically active. I wanted to include a more of this like creative flow in my daily routine. So I started to really do research on photography. I started to study photography. I started to photograph and really put my mind into that part of my life and create this reality of being a photographer and emphasizing that part of my life. I didn't have to actually quit my work in the harbor, so I was actually able to still work in the harbor to sort of support myself financially, but at the same time to pursue all these dreams that I had. I felt that the most difficult part was the people around me, so I was not able to always close off these people who were really close to me, telling telling me that, you know, maybe you should just stick with the good job and don't be having all these major dreams about your life. Just be realistic. This is something that you will hear so much from not only your parents, but also like your friends, people around you, if you decide to share your dreams with them. So be very cautious on whether you want to share these things with people, because people always bring their energy onto things. They might hear you share your dreams and they might instantly have an energetic disbelief about your dreams, your goals. So if you're sharing it with them, they might already set out an energy around it. So I rarely share anything with my friends. I rarely share anything with anyone, because I usually say I will share it once I have it, but I will never share my dreams or goals before I actually am surrounded by them, or before I actually have them in my physical reality, in my 3D, so to say. Something that I felt was very important was understanding what are your blockages. What are the actual blockages that you have in your life that are blocking you from getting to where you want to be? Whether it's to do with fear of judgment, which comes from others. You're fearful of others judging you. This will always happen. There will not be a day where no one will ever judge you. Everyone who has done anything visible or anything that is unusual compared to others, people will always have judgment. Like there will always be someone judging you. Because you cannot remove the judgment of others, you can only remove the inner judgment you have towards yourself. Because once you accept yourself, you're more able to accept what others think of you, because you don't really care anymore. As long as you need validations from others, you are bound to be affected by the judgment and the opinions that others have. So in this case, if you do have fear of judgment, I would suggest to better your own self-esteem. I would use EFT and meditation to really build that self-esteem, to start loving yourself more. Also, mirror work is great. One thing that I also had was fear of success. I had a fear of success. I always thought that, you know, I could easily do that, but I just don't want to do it. Like, I don't need that success. I don't need to prove anyone that I can do it or I can be successful on whatever field I had in mind at the time. But once I started to, for example, I started photography and I started my photography studies, I really understood that I actually wanted to show everyone, including myself, that I was able to succeed in that field, because it also meant for me, for myself, that I was able to grow and really develop my practice. Not to just show everyone that I'm able to do this, but it was to sort of show myself that I am always evolving and developing my practice and my artistic skill. But fear of success is also something that you need to ask yourself whether things changing would be a fearful thing for you, because we might envision success for ourselves, but we are too afraid of the change it requires. We need to also grow as people in order to be different versions of ourselves. If we want to succeed in our lives, it means that we need to become better versions of ourselves who are succeeding, who are doing things differently. And this is the most painful realization, means that you need to change. You need to really start implementing habits in your daily life that will take you closer to this version of yourself that you want to become. What really helped me was that I wrote down all the habits that I wouldn't say I didn't like, but I didn't enjoy as much. So things that I felt were not aligning with the version that I wanted to become. Let's say I wanted to be more of an active person in my life. I was going to the gym, but I was still this version of myself that would always choose a car instead of walking. And I would say my lifestyle was not as active, because I felt that if I'm already going to the gym, isn't that enough? But then I realized that what I really wanted to be was a person who didn't avoid movement, who didn't avoid trying new things, trying different hobbies or different activities. So I started to, against the comfort zone that I had, I started to do these things that didn't really always feel comfortable. I started doing them, deciding on doing them, and then executing them. It is truly just understanding which habits you have in your life now that are sort of either blocking or really slowing you down in getting to where you want to be. What helped me a lot was to envision this version that I wanted to be, like visually envision this version of myself, see what I would be wearing, how would my hair look, how would my nails look, how I would speak, what things I would be doing on a daily basis, where would I be in life with my career, with my studies. So I really wrote everything down to the detail, and I noticed I was able to see this version, who she was, what she was doing, and what I needed to do in order to really close the gap between us. And this meant that I needed to let go of some of my old habits. One thing that I cut out pretty much completely was my usage of alcohol. That wasn't the biggest issue that I had. It was more about the fact that once I was drinking, I felt that I was always taking myself out of the version of myself that I wanted to become. So whenever I chose to go for a drink or chose to invest myself energetically in having a drink or two, I would always have a couple of days after that where I needed to sort of regroup myself so I could again be this version that I wanted to be. So I noticed that these were two different people and I was moving between them. And once I understand that alcohol wasn't really bringing much into my life, doesn't mean that I cannot drink every now and then, but I'm really talking about having one drink in 2-3 months. I sort of really cut alcohol down because I understood what it was doing to me mentally, but also physically. Like I was not able to be as active within my body. I didn't really feel good within my body when I was drinking. I had a lot of social anxiety, not only before I would go drinking, but also the day after. Understanding the impact of small habits and how you could then change these habits and start changing your self-concept, really changing the physical attributes and the 3D reality that you have. I would say it's not really possible to change yourself within like a span of 6 months. Some people are talking about it, but it depends on how deeply rooted your beliefs are. So if you really think that you're not worthy of love, or you're not worthy of success, or you're not worthy of abundance, it's really difficult to start manifesting those things into your life because subconsciously you think that you do not deserve these things. So you need to start working on, why do you think you don't deserve them? Why would anyone else deserve them more than you do? Why would you see yourself of not being worthy of some things that you desire into your life? Why do you think that somebody else can have something but you cannot? What are the answers to these questions? And start answering them. In the beginning, it might be so painful to really understand and answer your own questions about these subjects that you sort of like kept hidden and thought that, okay, they're okay because I'm not touching them. I'm not really looking at these issues, so they're not real or they don't exist in my, current reality. But they do exist if they are blocking you from getting to where you want to be. What really baffled me was that it really is that simple. You attract what you are. So how to become this person who attracts the things that you want? You've probably seen there was this time in social media, especially on TikTok, where people created a new character for themselves and then they started to react the life of this character, like the smallest things that this character would do. And this is almost similar to the shifting of your self-concept. I thought these challenges were great, but they do have this small issue of if you only put this time frame for yourself for 30 days or a month, 6 months or whatever, I feel like it might really inspire you to continue, but it might also discourage you in knowing that, or thinking that, okay, maybe I only have to keep up with this character for this and this amount of time and then I can kind of drop everything. So instead of seeing it as, it's like a diet culture, like being on a diet for only 6 months, okay? As in diet culture, we always look at the time period that we need to sort of stick with something. So if you look at the character development from the point of view of like, okay, this only takes me 6 months and then I can, then I might be fully developed into the character. That's not completely true. You don't know how long things will take. You don't know how long it takes you to really shift from one person to another because we are different, we are unique. So it might be that you have different beliefs behind you. So it might be that it will take you longer time to really sort of let go of this past version of yourself, and you don't know until you try. I would really look at this as something that you are changing, like you're really changing your whole life, not only one aspect of your life. I would really look at these things as small aspects of this character development, and then really just continuing in doing these things. Like there is really no end to this, and once you have physically done the little changes, you will notice that you will have these things in your life. But of course you need to start somewhere. Let's say that you want to be more self-confident. How to be more self-confident? Self-confidence requires a lot of self-love. So you need to first start loving yourself. And what does that mean to you? So answer the questions of how can you start loving yourself? Again, mirror work, affirmations, EFT are great because they are really reprogramming your subconscious and you are able to shift and really raise your confidence levels. And once you become more confident, you start doing things confident people do. One thing will lead to another. And you need need to start wherever you are at this moment. So it doesn't mean that your starting point is the same as somebody else's. Of course, this is your journey. So understanding where you are now and what is really the length of the differences that you have between the version that you want to become and the person that you are now. And don't be discouraged about the version that you are now, because we might really, sometimes we stop and we look at, we look at our lives and we think about like, things are not moving, things are not evolving. Why am I not seeing results? I've been doing this for, I don't know, 6 months or maybe even a year. I started a photography blog and I read everywhere that your blog will be up and running and you will be having a passive income within a month, even less time. Some people might experience it within 2 years. And now it's been 3 years and my blog is still, I would still say like, it has really gained a lot of like authority on Google, but it's still not where I really wanted it to be. This just means that every journey is not the same. It means that you might start something and you will end up doing something totally different because of your journey. So you can really look inspiration from others, but do not compare yourself to others because you are not the same with them. Accept it, accept yourself, and start loving yourself, because once you start loving yourself, it's a lifelong journey. The sooner you start, the sooner you're able to really make the necessary